I know this is basically going to be a weekly topic until we get some kind of confirmation, some kind of idea what's going to happen, because right now everyone's just making excuses. But this leaker said that, and we have a price point, and we have a release date, and Emily Rogers was so reliable before she retired. Like, she was right about this and this. Tom Henderson. Like, there are a handful of Nintendo YouTubers right now, Pretendos, right now, trying to convince you that the Nintendo Switch 2 should come out in 2024. And if they don't, Nintendo is missing out on a golden opportunity. They're going to lose the market share. They're going to lose all the momentum they built up with the Switch. Like, audiences are going to leave them in droves, and the third-party games, which totally exist, by the way, the big third-party games that totally exist and would come to Nintendo consoles if it was just more powerful. It's going to be a true multi-plat gaming machine, right? People don't just want to play 3D Mario. They don't just want to play Zelda. They don't just want to play Pokemon. Oh, we're going to get everything on the Switch 2 when it comes out in September 2024, right? That is the narrative right now, even though we have, like, confirmation from Furukawa that, like, the Switch will continue to be supported until at least March 2025. It may go beyond that. We don't necessarily know what the mindset is. But, like, I think it's safe to say, at the very least, that the release date for 2024 is wrong. Because Nintendo, if you don't know, companies, retailers, the industry, like, they need to know about these products before they hit store shelves, right? You know, Sega got in trouble with this with the Sega Saturn, I think it was, where they just confirmed the thing was in, like, on store shelves, like, that day, right? And like, it was such a poor marketing decision because, like, nobody knew this thing existed, nobody knew it was out, and so, like, it just led to, like, the whole thing, like, kind of collapsing, right? It was just like, it's an example of why you can't just rush out a machine to market, right? Why you can't just go from, like, saying that, like, this machine does not exist to, announcing your next big thing, right? You need to have, like, some kind of confirmation. You need to have, like, some kind of showcase trailer. You need to have, like, time for the public to, like, understand that this thing is coming out. And, like, that process takes, like, about over a year, right? Like, since, like, the time frame between, like, the alleged release date, it's September 2024, versus right now is, like, so short, I think it's safe to say that it isn't going to happen. And there are, of course, like, a lot of other indications that is the case. Like, I don't see, like, Nintendo releasing Splatoon 3's DLC side order in mid-2024 or whatever, and then, like, releasing a new console, like, immediately after that. Like, I just don't see that happening. Like, I see Splatoon 4 as being, like, a release window game for the next Nintendo console, right? I just don't see it happening. You know, like, it just doesn't make sense with we've been seeing. And the narrative from the Pretendo YouTubers right now is that, like, well, we know it's coming because Nintendo did not announce a single new game in this last September Direct. And that is actually what I want to talk about here today, because I just want to say, really? That's your justification? That's your excuse? Oh, there wasn't a single major game announced on Nintendo Switch. Like, are you serious? Like, oh, they were all remakes and remasters. Well, what about, like, Trace Memory? Like, the second game never came out over here. Like, that first one is a complete overhaul. Like, what about, like, what about the Splatoon 3 DLC we just saw? Like, we knew it was coming, but this is the first time we've seen it. Like, what about Princess Peach Showtime? What about Mario Wonder? Like, we saw those games in, like, the last Direct, a couple of months ago, but, like, these guys are, like, trying to, like, pretend as if, like, because these games were already unveiled, they don't count as new games because of this, and this. Like, these don't count as, like, real games, right? Like, they're doing that thing they always do with, like, they try to say that, like, everything coming out is not a major release, right? Like they're doing this right now a lot with Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Detective Pikachu Returns, especially Detective Pikachu Returns. I feel like now that Mario Wonder is like topping Amazon sales charts, that like Detective Pikachu Returns is the game that's getting a lot of flack for being such a minor Switch release. Like, I saw RGT85 release a video claiming that like this game like proves like this game is an example of like Pokemon's decline when in reality it's about on par with like the 3DS game. Like actually it's an improvement, right? For those of us who played the 3DS game, you can see that like Detective Pikachu Returns actually does have a lot of notable improvements, and there are things, it's a really well received game. And like he tried like bringing up the Metacritic scores, and like I just kind of laughed at him and showcased like the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon scores, because you cannot trust critic reviews, right? For this kind of like niche thing. Like a big thing, what makes Detective Pikachu appealing is like the whole Pokemon aspect. And if you aren't a fan of the brand, you're not going to be on board with like what the series is trying to do. And that's kind of a big, like massive issue when it comes to critics reviewing this kind of thing, right? Like critics don't necessarily understand the appeal of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, just like they don't understand the appeal of Detective Pikachu Returns. So it's not because these games are bad per se, it's because critics aren't the target audience, right? Like it's the same thing with like the Super Mario Bros. Movie. It's so weird seeing these people kind of pick and choose what matters and what doesn't when it comes to this kind of situation, right? And right now, it seems like that's the narrative, is that there are no major games coming out on Nintendo Switch. And because like there are so many remakes coming out, that proves that the Nintendo Switch 2 is on the horizon, right? Never mind that like remakes have been getting more and more frequent. Never mind that like as time goes on, we have like more and more games to remake. Never mind that like a lot of these aren't like all that big of upgrades, right? Dark Moon HD, it basically just seems like a re-release with like HD visuals. Like it can't have been that expensive to produce, right? But like no, we're gonna use the fact that these games exist to distract you from the fact that like there's so much more coming out, in the coming months. Like, so what if there are a lot of remakes and remasters? Because we're getting a bunch of new content in the next several months. Like, so much so that I'm having problems like keeping up with everything. Like it's just like this month alone, like I put like maybe 3 hours into taking Pikachu Return. Well, to be fair, like in my case, I'm like working, and it's been kind of difficult to take time out to play games. But like I I am not running out of games to play on Nintendo Switch. Like, when these guys come out and try to say, like, oh, sales are declining, like, what they're not telling you is that, like, sales are declining from their all-time highs in 2020, when Animal Crossing New Horizons, the best-selling original game on Nintendo Switch, launched, right? Like, here's the thing they don't want to tell you, is that, like, the sales are declining to what they were before 2020, right? Like if you actually, they'll make a big deal about like 2023. Oh, this is the worst selling year for year for Nintendo Switch ever. Sales are going down, right? This is the lowest they've been since 2020. Like they're about where they were before 2020. They're about where they were in 2019, where they were a huge success. And because Switch has such an established install base, because it has such a consistent software like attaché rate, because like people are still buying games for it, the console is still viable. This idea that like the console, that people are just gonna like flee Nintendo Switch to the next big thing, is laughable. It really is. And I feel like most people like haven't really grasped it yet. That like people are legit buying tablets, new gaming consoles, high-end PCs, and they're just going back to Nintendo Switch. You know how I know that's what's happening? Because that's what happened to me, right? When I got my high-end PC, intending to play Elden Ring on it, I somehow had so many games to play on Nintendo Switch that I never even got around to buying the game, right? Like I bought Tekken 7 on this game on sale for like $8 and just ended up wishing the game was available on Nintendo Switch. Like I have all these Yeast games on my wish list and just wish they were on Nintendo Switch. They were on the platform that I prefer to play on, right? Like it's this idea that people are going to migrate away from Switch just because the hardware is old is like a proven not true, right? Like we really need to get out of this mindset, you know, because we are seeing games like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe like sell for like a solid decade. You know, not even sell at this point. Like these games are like getting updated with new content. You know, these guys are really going to come out and tell you that games like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Splatoon 3 are going to get their final DLC updates in 2024, and then we're gonna get like another Nintendo console like later that year. That doesn't make any sense. Like if you know anything about how Splatoon's like cycle works, like you'll know that they end like the Splatfest. They have like a conclusion to like the plot of like what's going on. They set up the next game, and then they just kind of like you know, they have like I think they have like I don't think they continue doing update patches, but like the idea is that like they're constantly adding things to the game like throughout the game's lifespan, and then they just kind of stop. And like for Splatoon 3, that hasn't even come close to happening yet, right? So I think this is a really good way to judge just when we can expect to see like the next Nintendo console, because while Splatoon 3 is still being worked on, it doesn't make much sense for Nintendo to release a new Nintendo console, right? Like what I would do is just release like release the next Nintendo console and like release Splatoon 4 as like the big premiere like online shooter launch title, right? Right, that's what makes sense to me. Like that's what people would get excited for. Like because this is a game that's gonna get like free updates for like what 2 years after release. It's gonna get DLC. It's gonna be a big deal, right? I know gaming YouTubers don't like admitting that Splatoon is a big deal, but it is. So, like with all this in mind, with like all this like this proven stuff that like these claims that like YouTubers are throwing out there, like basically all of this has been debunked, right? There is no indication at all that Nintendo is releasing new hardware next year, but they are still consistently trying to pretend that maybe it might be true. They're still trying to like hold out hope that they're gonna get those ad revenue dollars in time for like holiday 2024, so they can just do their day one coverage, do that thing they do where they like flip from being excited to the console to like doing like concern trolling and like making those like terrible Crobcat videos where like they pretend the Switch is broken or that like they screwed something up or that the games aren't good. Like you're gonna see them do that when the console does get announced. I do think that's the big thing we should emphasize now, like this early in the game, like before we do anything else, like the instant this thing gets revealed, the new Nintendo platform gets revealed, which I imagine is going to be like 2025, 2026. Like the instant this thing gets revealed, you're going to see all of these people say it's crap, right? You're going to see all of these people come out and say it's not good. The games don't look good. This isn't what we wanted. The visuals aren't up to par. You know, why would I play this instead of my gaming PC? Like you're going to see them do the same thing they did with the Switch, with the Wii U, with the Wii, right? They're just going to whine and complain about nothing. And that's what I really want to emphasize here is that people aren't looking forward to the next Nintendo console because they're looking forward to all the new interesting games, because plenty of new interesting games are already coming to Nintendo Switch. Like they're interested in the platform, or more accurately, the idea of the platform, in order to generate like views to their channel, to get clicks, to get attention, like to just be parasites on the YouTube Nintendo community, right? Like these guys don't have any idea what they're talking about. They don't respect their audience at all, and they cannot, by any stretch of the imagination, be considered real Nintendo fans.